Maritime SMRs drive new global nuclear rules. Released in November 2025, the latest global maritime SMR report outlines how small modular reactors, SMRs, could accelerate the most consequential realignment of international nuclear and maritime regulation in decades. As governments, port authorities, and classification societies assess early deployment pathways, the report makes clear that the technologies involved are maturing faster than the frameworks surrounding safety, liability, and cross-border operations. For an industry already under pressure to decarbonize, the regulatory groundwork will shape whether nuclear propulsion becomes viable for deep-sea shipping by the early 2030s. A regulatory system not designed for mobile reactors. The report identifies a fundamental challenge. Current nuclear safety rules were built for stationary reactors, while maritime regulations were written for conventional vessels. Neither system anticipates mobile nuclear power plants operating across international waters, approaching ports, or docking near coastal communities. The International Maritime Organization's IMO existing codes do not address reactor physics, radiological materials, or emergency planning zones, while nuclear conventions assume land-based operations governed by domestic regulators. This mismatch creates structural gaps that must be resolved before any commercial nuclear-powered cargo vessel can be authorized. The report highlights that safety cases, defense-in-depth requirements, and spent fuel protocols need a harmonized approach that merges nuclear rigor with shipping practicality, something no existing international framework currently delivers. IMO and IAEA must co-author a unified framework. One of the report's central findings is that no single authority can regulate maritime nuclear propulsion alone. Because reactors must meet nuclear-grade safety expectations while operating within the maritime navigation and vessel certification ecosystem, an integrated system will be required. Parallel initiatives launched in 2025 by the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, including the SMR Pilot School, which began developing training pathways for regulators preparing for new deployment types. Industry observers note that the IMO and IAEA have begun initial coordination discussions, but the scope and pace of integration will determine how quickly pilot projects advance. A unified framework would need to address vessel design, construction, operator licensing, port access protocols, emergency preparedness, and environmental monitoring. For classification societies, which traditionally certify hull integrity and marine systems, nuclear oversight would represent a substantial expansion in technical responsibility. Port states become gatekeepers for market adoption. The report's port readiness analysis shows that only a limited number of countries currently meet the infrastructure and regulatory prerequisites to host nuclear-propelled vessels. Ports differ widely in the availability of safety exclusion zones, berthing layouts, monitoring capabilities, and emergency response capacity. For coastal authorities, public perception, environmental justice considerations, and long-term waste management obligations will influence whether nuclear-propelled vessels are welcomed or restricted. Research suggests that early adoption may concentrate in regions with strong nuclear governance systems: East Asia, Northern Europe, the United States, and the UAE, while developing economies may require additional technical and financial assistance to meet emerging standards. These disparities mean that port access rules could become a powerful market barrier or catalyst, depending on how international harmonization unfolds. Liability and insurance will accelerate policy faster than technology. A critical theme throughout the report is the role of insurers and protection and indemnity, P&I clubs. Because existing nuclear liability conventions were built around land-based accidents, vessel-based nuclear risk introduces new complexities: cross-border exposure, multi-jurisdictional transit, and variable port state oversight. Insurers are expected to require consistent global rules before underwriting policies at scale. The analysis indicates that actuarial models for maritime SMRs are already being evaluated by risk carriers. Their requirements for unified safety standards, incident reporting, and liability ceilings may shape the regulatory landscape earlier than government policy, especially as shippers seek predictable global rules for transit routes. Climate pressure and decarbonization timelines push regulations forward. Regulatory urgency is not driven solely by nuclear innovation. Global shipping is under intensifying pressure to meet the IMO's strengthened 2030 and 2040 emissions objectives, along with growing expectations from cargo owners and financiers to align with science based decarbonization pathways. Maritime SMRs are emerging as one of the few propulsion options capable of delivering long distance, zero emission performance at scale. This dynamic places regulators in a challenging position, adapting nuclear oversight to emerging technologies while simultaneously responding to climate driven market pressures. The report concludes that countries with advanced nuclear programs, strong maritime industries, and established port infrastructure may gain competitive advantage if they move quickly to establish workable frameworks. Taken together, the findings underscore a pivotal moment for the maritime sector. As interest in nuclear propulsion grows and global climate targets tighten, the need for a comprehensive regulatory system spanning nuclear safety, vessel operations, port access, and liability is becoming unavoidable. You've been listening to Sustainability Soundbites by Environment+Energy Leader. For partnership opportunities, please reach out to our team. And don't forget to submit your entry for the 2026 awards program. Deadline is 12/31/2025.